Friends, we're reading this morning from Matthew's Gospel in Matthew chapter 5 from verse 13. Matthew chapter 5, reading from verse 13. Of course, that's part of the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus goes up the mountain. He calls his disciples to him and he begins to tell them what it means to be a person of the kingdom of God. In many ways, Matthew's Gospel is analogous to the story of Moses in Exodus. And so as Moses called the people out of slavery, as he went up Mount Sinai to receive the law, the Ten Commandments, and to say to the people, this is who you are to be, this is how you are to act, this is how you are to live. In the same way, Jesus goes up the mountain and he calls his people to him and he says, if you want to be my people, this is how you are to be living. And so he has begun to speak to them. He has shared what we call the Beatitudes. Blessed are you when this happens and if you do this. And now he speaks to his followers and he says this from verse 13 of Matthew chapter 5. He says, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. And you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So far we read this morning. Friends, Jesus' instruction to his followers is simply to go out and to be salt and light. He says, if you are my people, you are to be people of salt and light. Go out and let your good deeds be seen by all people. And in my mind, the instruction is very simple. You don't have to get involved in all sorts of complicated theology about who God is and what God wants of us. The instruction is simple. Go out and create a better world. Go out and make this place a better place to live. And so we are to be people who will do that. If we follow Jesus, this is what Jesus asks. He asks us to go and make this a better place for ourselves and for others. Friends, I hope that's why we meet together on a Sunday morning. And I'm sure we all have different reasons why we come. But we make a decision, we make a choice to be here on a Sunday morning instead of sleeping late. I know sometimes when it's cold and dark, we'd rather be lying in bed. But we come here. We make a choice to be here instead of going shopping on a Sunday morning, or instead of doing other activities that we may not have time to do in the week, or having visitors early, or going out somewhere special. So we choose to come here on a Sunday morning, and I hope at least partly that is because we want to make the world a better place. And we want to live a better life ourselves. Because I think everybody wants to live better. And we are here because we believe that God can help us to do that. If we have a good relationship with God, we can live better. We usually want a better life because we're unhappy with something that is going on around us. And maybe we're unhappy with the way our business is going. Maybe we're unhappy with how much money we have. Maybe we're unhappy with the car we drive, with the family that we have. And we like to do things that are going to help us to live better, to have a better life. I think probably by now we've realized that many of the things that we long for don't actually make that much of a difference. more toys and more money don't help us to live better. Products advertised on TV with all these great promises, and you go out and buy them and they never work quite as well as what's been advertised. Or promises that politicians make to us about how there's going to be a better life for all. And the promises are not fulfilled. We've come to learn that all these external things don't actually make a better life. I'm convinced, and the reason that I stand up here every Sunday, that the only way we're going to have a better life is by having a better relationship with God. A relationship with God that leads us to the places that are broken and helps us to bring healing and restoration. That's when life gets better. That's when our family life gets better. That's when our political life gets better and our country's life gets better. Through a transformed relationship with God right now. Whereas I'm reminded of the story of the Hindu holy man who went to visit the Pope. And he went into the Vatican and up those grand staircases and past all the artworks and through the ornate offices and rooms, and finally he sat down in the Pope's office in front of this enormous desk and he greeted the Pope, and they were happy to be able to chat to each other and to bring greetings and blessings. And as he sat there talking to the Pope, he saw a red telephone on the Pope's desk. And so he asked the Pope about the telephone, and the Pope said, well, that's my hotline to God. And the Hindu was quite impressed by this. He said, would you mind if I tried? The Pope said, go ahead. So the Hindu priest took the phone and dialed the number. Sure enough, he got hold of God, and he had a brief conversation, gave him blessings and greetings, and had a word or two, and he put the phone down. And then he said to the Pope, thank you very much, I appreciate it. The Pope said, yes, well, that's going to be 75 euros. Well, the Hindu holy man took out his wallet and he handed the money over, and the Pope was saying, you see, it's a long-distance call, and you know what the price of long-distance calls are. Anyway, a few months later, the Pope was visiting India, and so he made an arrangement to go and visit the Hindu priest. And he walked in through the village, to the little hut, and bent his head to get into the hut, went to sit humbly on the floor next to the priest. He had those short desks, table things, all sort of. And sure enough, there was a red telephone on the priest's desk. And then, so the Pope said to the priest, what is this telephone for? And he said, this is my hotline to God. And the priest said, well, you know, I really have a lot on my mind at the moment. Would you mind if I made a call? And the priest said, go right ahead. So the Pope picked up the phone, he got hold of God, and he chatted. And it was 15 minutes, and it was half an hour. Eventually it was an hour before he put the phone down. And he said to the priest, you know, I'm sorry for taking so long, but you know, the way things are with the problems in the Vatican and the problems with priests in America and the way the churches are changing in Europe, I really had a lot on my mind. And the Indian man said, no, that's fine, but you owe me 2 rupees. And the priest said, only 2 rupees? How come it's so cheap? And he said, well, here it's a local call. And I think we all wish that we have the kind of relationship with God that is like a local call, where you can pick up the phone and have a conversation with God and just be connected to God all the time, whenever you need Him, so that we can live lives that are better. The reality for many of us, though, is that our relationship with God is a bit dysfunctional. And very often, our relationship with God is dysfunctional because the relationship we have with God is similar to the relationship we have with people, and very often our relationship with people is dysfunctional. And you know, we speak of God as Father, and yet we have difficulties with our own Father. Very often men have unresolved issues with their Father in their lives. Or we see God almost as an abusive partner. One who is looking for reasons to beat us up and expects us to come groveling back every time we've done something wrong. We almost come to God cringing in fear of punishment. And so often, this is what I hear when people speak to me. I've done this thing. Is God going to send me to hell? or I'm going through this difficult time, is God punishing me for something that I've done? And so we have this dysfunctional picture of God. Or our relationship with God is often neglected. You know, when we come to church, Christmas and Easter, when we cry out to God when something goes wrong in our life, Lord, please help me. And we're not building a relationship with God, and then we have this dysfunctional picture. If we want to enjoy a better life, we have to move beyond the dysfunctional picture to building a good and a healthy relationship with God. That God is not somebody we just call on when we're in trouble, or somebody we go to church we go to at Christmas and Easter. So, the title of my sermon today is Salt or Side Salad. And it's a question which goes to the heart of who God is for us and how we see God, what kind of relationship we have with God in our lives. You see, salt and salad are both things that we consume as we eat, but we consume them in different ways. And so I want to begin firstly by speaking about side salad. You know, in South Africa, we're not too keen on vegetables. We like our meat. Rice, vleis and apples. And when we go out to eat, don't we? We go out to have a meal. I know I do this. And I have my meat and my chips. Lynn likes calamari. She has calamari and chips. Or we have hake and chips. And sometimes, occasionally, we'll have a salad on the side. Because it's nice to have something green. It's nice to have something else to go with the meat and things. But by and large, and I know there are lots of people who enjoy their vegetables and there are people who are vegetarians, but by and large, our vegetables are a side dish. Something that comes along the side of the main course. If you're a vegetarian, and you live on vegetables, that's great. You'll know that it can be a meal in itself. If you put all the right grains and legumes and all those other funny things that you guys put in salads, it becomes a wholesome meal by itself. But most of us don't eat enough vegetables. Most of us could do with more fruit and veggie every day. 5 fruit and vegetables, I say, or even more. So there's already something you can take home with you that's going to make your life better. Eat more vegetables. So that's what a salad is. Salt is something different. We all probably eat salt every day. In fact, you probably eat too much salt every day. Because salt's in everything. It's nearly impossible to find something that doesn't have salt in it. If you've ever had to go on a low sodium diet, you'll know that. And salt's important. You've ever made porridge without putting salt in it? You can't eat it. It's got that bland taste. And you try to add salt on top afterwards, but when the salt hasn't been cooking, it's not quite the same. Salt is everywhere. It's in our food, it's in our drinks, it's in our snacks. When we exercise, salt comes up out of our pores. And even the things that we think are not salty often have salt in them. You look at the ingredients on the box, and there it is, sodium of one form or another. It's possible to have too little salt, but it's more likely that we have too much salt, because it's in everything that we eat. So it's important to get just the right amount of salt in our lives, just as it is important to get enough vegetables. So we need to eat salt, and we need to eat salad. But here's the question I want to ask you this morning. Is your relationship with God more like salt or more like a side salad? See, a salad-God relationship is like this. God is important in your life. You need God to stay alive, but you probably don't get enough of God. Because at the end of the day, God is something that comes on the side of the rest of your life. You live your main course through the week and you go to church on a Sunday for God on the side. And it's nice to have a bit of variety, and maybe in the tedium of every day, it's nice to go to a Bible study in the week. You hear those words, go to. We go to church, we go to Bible study. It's something extra that we go to. Because the real meal is the meat of business or family or whatever it is that you do the rest of the time. And friends, this is when our picture of God becomes dysfunctional. When God is something we only do on a Sunday, something we go to, a God we go to when we're in trouble. When God is something we go to on Christmas or Easter, then God is going to be the absent father that we're always trying to please. When God is something we do only on a Sunday, our picture of God is going to be the abusive partner that we have to come crawling to apologize because we were misbehaving all week. When God is something that we only do on a Sunday, we are going to have the kind of relationship that never seems to go anywhere. Friends, God shouldn't be something that we go to, but a reality that we live every day. Not God on a Sunday, but God each moment of our lives. God as salt in our lives, permeating everything we do and everything that we say and everything that we are. God who, if He is not present in our lives, leaves our existence seeming dull and bland and tasteless like a porridge without salt. A God who, when things get tough, pours out of our pores because we are so infused with God that nothing else can happen. A God who is so present in our lives in just the right amount that we are not godless, and neither are we perceived to be so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good. A God who is so with us in every circumstance and situation that we can say with the tremolos, even the bad times are good. So just one thing I want to pick up from our reading this morning. Jesus is speaking to His followers in the Sermon on the Mount. The second law. Jesus is saying to His followers, you know the law of Moses. You've been brought up with the commandments. And you have heard that it was said, but I say to you. You have been doing it this way, but now do it that way. He's saying, take that picture of God that you have, the picture of a God who is dysfunctional, and begin to understand God in a different way. Begin to create in your minds a different picture of God, and to create in your lives a different relationship. A relationship that is not dysfunctional, but a relationship that is healthy and life-giving. A relationship that brings life to you and which becomes salt and light for the world around you. And this, He says, is your assignment. You are to be salt and light to a broken world. Let your good deeds shine before everybody else. Friends, Jesus gives us that assignment because He knows that most people do not live lives that are full and healthy and meaningful. And most people live lives that are bland and flavorless and have no meaning. There's a well-known quote that most men live lives of quiet desperation. Jesus knows that we need to live better. And this is the only instruction for being a good Christian. Be salt and light. Make life better for others. And so, friends, we are called to be salty people. We are called to be more than Sunday Christians with our faith as something that comes on the side of who we are and what we do. We can only have a good relationship with God and others when God is a part of everyday life, when God permeates us as salt permeates a well-cooked meal. And so over the next 6 weeks we're going to journey together, and we're going to follow this path, looking at what it means to be salty Christians, learning how to allow God to permeate our life with ourselves, how to allow God to permeate our life as we meet with people of other faiths, how to allow God to permeate our lives as we have to do with the poor. Learning how to allow God to permeate our lives as we deal with our enemies, and how to allow our faith to salt our friendships and our celebrations. It's my prayer that as we journey over the next 6 weeks, we're going to become salty Christians. And we're going to get to know God so much better. That we're going to get to know God in a way that changes us. That our relationship with God is changed from being something that we go to something that is an irremovable part of us. May we pray. And so, Lord God, as we have heard this word this morning, we know what word you have spoken to us as individuals, and we know what word you are speaking to us as a church. We are called to be salt and light. And we know this morning that there are many people whose lives are bland and tasteless. There are many people living in the darkness. But we are the people who are called to change them. And so we think of those, Lord God, who are caught up in the darkness of loneliness and bereavement. We ask that as we think of those who are known to us, and those who are unknown but who we see every day as we drive down the road, that you teach us and speak to us and show us how to be salt and light in their lives. We think, Lord God, of those whose lives are dark and tasteless because they are hungry. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. They don't know where they are going to be living. They don't know if they have a bed tonight. So we lift them up to you, Lord. We pray that you will show us how to be salt and light in their lives. We think, Lord God, of those who are in the darkness of illness. Those who are known to us, those who are not. We pray, Lord God, that we would be salt and light to them. And Lord, then we think of our country and our rulers and the political parties who have promised a better life but haven't been able to deliver. We pray, Lord God, that we would so be involved in our communities and in our country, that we would become the salt and light that changes the flavor of South Africa, that we would be the salt and light that brings transformation to leadership, transformation to governance, transformation in the grassroots of the communities. May our good deeds so shine before the world that you may be glorified and honored. Lord, may we be the people who bring hope to the hopeless, light to the dark, healing to the broken, and joy to the sorrowful. For we pray these things in your name. Amen.